Kyle Bradshaw from Cruiser Customizing.
Gregory Beck from Tucker Distributing.
On this week's Wednesday with Greg, we want to talk about braking. Now, not just braking as in the action of braking, but about your brakes on your motorcycle and things to take a look at before you go out and hit the road this spring.
Yeah, a pretty important component with motorcycling is your brake system. Make sure they're top notch and you know how to use them properly.
So the couple things you want to talk about is number one, the fluid itself. The fluid, do you have enough brake pressure? If the brake is spongy, you've probably got air or water inside that brake system, and the fluid must be changed.
Yeah, dot 3 and 4 does absorb moisture. That's why dot 5 was invented, because dot 5 won't absorb it.
Another thing you can take a look at is the color of your brake fluid. If you've got a sight glass on the back or front of your reservoir, take a look. Is it turning yellow? Is it anything but a clear color? If it does have color, you must change it.
Yeah, having the proper amount and clean brake fluid is important. If you've never had yours changed and your bike's been around, time to change it.
The $4 bottle of brake fluid could save you several $100s. That dirty brake fluid can actually corrode your pistons. It can actually make your brakes fail and not work.
Yeah.
The second major component of your brake system is the pads. Are the pads in good condition? Did you wear them out last season? Is it time to replace them? That's something to definitely take a look at before you get out there on the road.
Yeah, and when we're talking about wearing out a pad, pads don't necessarily have to be all gone to be worn out, because as that pad gets thinner, it puts more heat into your brake fluid. So you don't want to be riding it until they go metal to metal. That's going to cost you more money to replace, because your rotor's going to get messed up. But when brake pads, when you think they're about 85% done, change them. It's cheaper.
Now, one thing that Greg and I talk about often is every time you change your tire, it's a good time to change your brakes. You've already got it apart. You're already looking at it. What happens if you go to change your tire and it still has 30% braking left, right? It's 30% left of pad. You're going to need to change those pads before you do that next tire, most likely.
Yeah, it's just not worth the hassle. You know, a fresh brake pad is a good thing. And when we're talking about fresh brake pads, let's talk about breaking them in. You clean the rotor with something like alcohol or contact cleaner, something to clean oil off the rotor, make sure it's clean. Put new brake pads in properly. If you don't know how, have somebody do it, because you do not want to make a mistake with a brake pad or a brake component of any kind. When you get them on properly and you're going to go down the street and grab a handful, do not do that, because here's what happens. That brand new pad against that old rotor, or even against a new rotor, doesn't have, they're not broken in together. So when you grab a handful on that brand new setup, it's going to skid around on your rotor. And then you're going to burn, or everybody calls it glazing, you're going to glaze the brake pad. It will never recover from that. If you get your car serviced, on the work order they always tell you, bed these in. In the motorcycle industry, we haven't got that far, but it's going to happen. Bed them in. Read the back of the brake pad container you got. Gingerly go down the street and apply pressure slowly, building up a little heat in the pad. Get off of it, go down the road, do it again. Don't go out on the freeway, ride 250 miles and come back and think your brake pads are worn in, because they're not. You haven't used them. Break them in gingerly. You will be paid in dividends by having a really, really good brake.
Now, before we go, I want to talk a little bit about brake types. When it comes to the pads, you've got organic, which is what most OEM pads are.
Ooh, not anymore.
Not anymore.
No. There is a designation on brake pads called HH. It's not a brand. It wasn't invented by anybody. It's a standard. Most sport bikes or high-performance cruisers use HH. If you have HH listed, do not go down to a regular brake pad. Inversely, if you have an older bike and it didn't have HH, you can step up. As a matter of fact, EBC just came out with a new pad called a V-pad. And it is a pad for cruisers and Harleys and stuff that give you really good braking with no squeaking. Pretty cool, and it's really kind to the rotors. Neat pad. They just came out. Most people don't even know about them.
So you've got organic, you've got sintered, you've got full metallic, you've got all kinds of different options. So when looking at brake pads, look at what your motorcycle from the factory recommends, and then get either that quality or step it up a notch.
Yeah, one thing that I hear a lot about is, ooh, sintered pads, they're going to wear out my rotors. Well, if you have a 1970s bike performance rotor that's meonite, which is cast iron, yes, that's correct. They're harder than the iron, and but you know, they break like crazy. They're really good. Modern bikes have a lot more stainless steel in the rotors, and the HH type center pads are much softer. The pad will wear out, not the rotor.
There you go. A couple braking tips from Kyle and Greg. Thank you for watching this week's Wednesday with Greg.
And ride safe.